if the president is trying to keep the homeland safe and he is telling those state and local agencies, state and local officials that they need to partake in this and to help in furtherance of this, they would be defying the president.
Our first guest then in this new look to our analysis, weekly analysis, is Amanda Makki, who's a former advisor to President George W. Bush and Republican strategist. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. Amanda, just as you were joining us there, the news was breaking on the news agency AP that 1,500 U.S. troops are being sent to the Mexico-U.S. border. I just wonder, what will they be doing there now? The Mexico border, Amanda, is, 1,933.4 miles long. What will change?
Well, it's no surprise. Tom Homan, who was picked to run the Border Patrol Agency, is someone who has been unapologetic, someone who has been very bold in his attacks on what's happening on the U.S. Front with the border. I have visited the border in Luna County, New Mexico, and basically what happened under the Biden administration is that the wall was not built. All the material that the U.S. had procured was just sitting there rusting away to continue building the wall. So what President Trump wants to do, obviously, is to continue building that wall, but to also make sure that we do not have people coming in from Mexico, and they're not just Mexicans. This is not separating Mexicans. This is people from all over the world that are coming through the open borders of the southern border of the United States. And so that's what's trying to that's what they're trying to do, is to secure that border.
And would it be possible for the officers on the border, supported and reinforced by these American troops, to stop those people crossing the border? It is, as I say, a very long border. It's been very porous and really comparatively easy for refugees, migrants, asylum seekers to get across onto U.S. soil.
Right. And so that's the whole purpose of, making sure that we send border agents there. But also President Trump has talked about sending IRS agents potentially there. So all the IRS agents that were hired to go after Americans, they're now going to potentially, he has said, send them to the border there. The point is that the border, to your analysis, has to be fortified. You have to secure that border to make good on the promises that you made to the American people, that the American people widely supported in this election and wanted to see happen. So what you have to do is get the resources, the human resources there, in order to secure the border. You can't do it without that. And so that's in essence what's happening right now.
Right. Well, we'll see how that mission plays out. And meanwhile, the president is pursuing the plans that he's announced, taking action in the form of executive orders. He's signed an order which cancels birthright citizenship, which is the right of children born in America to be U.S. citizens if their parents are undocumented migrants. It's an end to decades of tradition and a constitutional right. It's also tremendously controversial.
It is, but what we have, the problem that we have seen for many, many decades in the United States is that you have what are called anchor babies. So in other words, the mother gets here, and by getting here, she can have a baby, and then she is free to stay. So to cut that anchor baby issue, what you have to do is make sure that that's not allowed to continue. So it's one way to stop the hemorrhaging of people coming here illegally and then being able to stay because they had a child here.
But isn't the problem with that the right to birthright citizenship, if you're born in the USA, to quote Bruce Springsteen, you're an American. That's in the Constitution, the 14th Amendment, I think. And now you've got, 18 or so governors and attorney generals of states of the Union determined to chase this all the way to the Supreme Court. How can you do this? I say you, the president and the administration. How can you do this if it's contrary to the Constitution?
Well, there is something that the president has, and that is the power to make sure that he can keep the borders of the United States secure and to keep Americans secure. And if he believes this is in the best interest of the United States and in furthering that need, then he is going to do that. Now, as you mentioned, 19 Democrats, states led by Democrats, attorney generals that are Democrats, have signed a letter and are taking this to possibly to the Supreme Court to fight this. And that's within their right. And the Supreme Court will come down on the issue, and that is their jurisdiction to do.
Yes.
This is a federal issue. The president has the ability to protect the American homeland. And certainly these governors are going to do what they want to do. And this will ultimately be decided by the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah, which has as it were, a conservative majority on the bench of 9 Supreme Court justices. Does that give you the edge here?
No, it doesn't, because these justices are supposed to be impartial. They have life terms, and so they are supposed to be, the scales of justice are blind, and so they are supposed to make the decision that is in the best rationale. And there have been many times when Justice Roberts and other conservatives on the court have sided with Democrats, or those who have been appointed by Democrats, I should say. And so I think that is the job of those justices. Despite who appointed them, they are supposed to rule based on the law. They use the law to guide them in their decisions. And that's what we hope and pray that our justices do. And so you may see Democrat appointed justices also side with Republican appointed justices on this, because this is something that has the jurisdiction of the federal government. The president has that ability to keep the homeland safe.
Okay, I guess we can reasonably expect this to be fought all the way up to the Supreme Court. And meanwhile, Amanda, the U.S. Justice Department is now today threatening to prosecute state officials who don't or who won't cooperate with the president's plan for mass deportations of undocumented migrants. Who do you imagine he means by that? Are we talking about city mayors being arrested and put in handcuffs? Are we talking about governors? Are we talking about other officials? What do you imagine?
Well, look, if the president is trying to keep the homeland safe, and he is telling those state and local agencies, state and local officials, that they need to partake in this and to help in furtherance of this, they would be defying the president. So you've seen some school districts say, we're not going to comply with the president's rule. We're not going to, share information,
yes,
or do anything in furtherance of that. And if that flies in the face of what the president's trying to do, then the president does have the right to further proceedings on that.
And would it be okay then, Amanda?
I don't know.
And therefore, can some of these senior state officials be arrested? It is a part of American tradition and enshrined in law down the decades and the centuries that the states have a degree of autonomy when it comes to the way they conduct their own affairs. But you think that does not count in these cases?
Well, states can conduct their affairs, but the federal government has the purview and the authority to force them to do it. So the fact that the president has said that this is what we're doing, the states and the localities have to comply. Now, again, if this goes to the Supreme Court is going to make that determination based on the law. And the law, in the way that many view it and should be viewed, is that the federal government has the jurisdiction to keep the country safe. And in furtherance of that, state and local governments need to participate and help the president in that mission.
Okay, it sounds like, Amanda, looked at from here, it sounds like it could get very ugly indeed. We could see, after that election win for Donald Trump, he swept the Electoral College. He got the popular vote, although by the odd percent or so. But this could lead to...
But it wasn't a popular vote election.
No, I recognise that. I do absolutely recognise that. And so the election win was clear and it was decisive. But we're now looking at opening up new fronts of dispute, which could, I think, get very ugly.
But this actually isn't a dispute at all. If you think about it, what did President Trump campaign on? What was President Trump's first presidency about? What did Joe Biden do the day that he took office? Is he did away with all the immigration policies that Trump put in place via executive order. So by him doing that and Trump wanting to undo that, in other words, go back to how it was in his first term, which was building the wall, keeping America safe, and doing all those things in furtherance of that, that's what the American people chose.
Yes.
That's what the mandate that he has is about. So you can't tell me that he's just going to ignore the will of the people who voted for him. And the state and local officials should take heed that that's what the American people voted for.
Okay,
and that's why it's no surprise what he's doing.
Yeah, I recognise your argument, and also I think the fact that there will be a good deal of argument from here on in. Amanda Makki, former advisor to the former president George W. Bush, a Republican strategist. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme.